Greetings and salutations, Myth fans. How's everyone doing? This is Mr. Man Indy, and I'm bringing you the next installment of Mythunderstandings. This lesson will be all about minion monster movement. How do the minions move during a darkness cycle once activated? This is actually an area of the system that I found confusing at first. The scout rules, for whatever reason, I needed some assistance with. So hopefully this particular Mythunderstandings installment gives you a sense on how to move minion monsters, specifically on how to move minion monsters of both the intellect and instinct variety. We'll get into that in a moment. Okay, I want to start this particular process just with what triggers the minions, and that is a darkness activation. Remember, we track the darkness board. We track AP on the darkness, and AP is directly related to the hero cards that are played. Let's say, for instance, you have a soldier within your hero party, and that soldier plays Devastate. You'll notice the darkness is sitting at 4 right now, the AP is sitting at 4, and the Devastate card is played, raising the darkness by 2, all the way then to 6, meaning that once this Devastate card is resolved, a darkness cycle will activate. And it's pretty simple. Once the darkness reaches 6, you will draw a card from the darkness deck itself, and you will resolve this card in a top-down fashion. Again, it's pretty simple, but I'll go through it in this example. There's first an event, and that event says if there's less than 4 minions, spawn a captain. Once you do that, you evaluate the threat penalty. Are there any heroes on the darkness, are there any heroes on the board that have a threat of 10? If they do, you're in a threat penalty example, and all heroes will take twice the damage for the rest of the act or the rest of your play session. Once you evaluate the threat penalty, then you look at the order of activation, and this means that minions, then captains, mini-bosses, and bosses will activate in that order, or will try to move and attack in that order that's indicated on the card. This is important to note. Only those monsters who are aware of the heroes will actually move. In the manual, and most people talk about that as as minions that have been activated to the hero's presence. Once the heroes are attacked from the moving minions, then you go ahead and you spawn additional minions out of layers that may be on the tile. In this particular example, it is a normal spawn. And you evaluate that just by looking at the monster card, which will tell you what a normal spawn consists of. Now, before you can actually begin moving the monsters, and again, remember this session is all about minion movement, before you can move them, you need to take a look at the monster's classification. And I'll show you what that means on a card here momentarily, but there are 3 different classifications of monster that have been defined in the rule book. The first one is an instinct monster classification. And any monsters that have this classification of instinct, they are the first minions to move. So for instance, if you have a tile with instinct monsters and other monster classifications, the instinct monsters will always move first. The other aspect of instinct monsters is that they stop when they can reach the target. And this is important. You might hear people say that they don't make room for their brethren monsters. And all that means is, hey, they stop as soon as they can reach the target. And we'll get into this in a moment. The next monster classification is intellect. They activate after instinct monsters. And because they're intelligent, they will always try to maximize the space around the target so that more minions can actually attack. So the way that works is an intellect monster uses as much movement as possible to yet maintain contact with the target. It makes room for others, and it makes the intellect monsters a little bit more dangerous because they can leave room for their other brethren monsters and giving more opportunity to attack the hero. Finally, the third type of monster classification is undead. Undead monsters do not exist in the base retail game, but they are in the manual, and I thought I would just reference them here as well. Undead monsters activate after intellect monsters, but all other aspects of an undead monster are driven off an instinctual monster classification. In other words, they stop when they can reach the target. Let's take a look at some examples of the instinct and intellect monsters and how they move. First off, there are two monster minion types in the base game. You have crawlers, who are an instinct monster, and you have grubbers, which are intellect. Crawlers, therefore, when they move so that they can reach the target, and they stop. Grubbers move the most that they can, trying to use all of their movement points, yet stay engaged with their target. Okay, let's start with the instinct crawlers, and they are the only instinct classification minion that's in the base game. You look to the bottom of the minion card itself to determine the classification, and you can see here I've highlighted the classification on the card itself underneath type and rank. And indeed, the crawlers are instinct, meaning that they're going to move until they're engaged with whatever target they have. So who will their target be? Their target's based on their priority. And the priority is proximity. So whichever hero is closest to the crawlers, if all that being equal, then it would be by threat. If threat's equal, then we look to guile. So if the brigand is on the tile, then the brigand would become the priority target. There are examples, however, when the three elements of priority are not enough to actually determine who the winner is or who the target should be. And in those times, you actually have the ability to use two additional elements. The first one being least vitality, and the second one being player choice. So you'll always have a choice if there's no clear-cut winner. So if we look at the heroes on the tile themselves, we can see that both heroes are 3 away from the minions, so no one is going to win in proximity. We would therefore next check threat. I've made the example such that they are equal, so we would go to guile. There is no brigand on the tile. Next up would be least vitality. They happen to have each a vitality of 6, so we're going to then choose the targeted hero based on player's choice. And I will go ahead and just, for the sake of this example, choose the soldier hero. And we next need to see, well, how far will the crawlers move? You can see I've highlighted they've moved 4. And we need to also keep in mind when they move, they will move up to their total movement points, but cease movement whenever they are engaged with their target. And that's important because they are an instinct minion, not an intellect minion. Intellect minions will move and leave room for their brethren. So next up we say, who's the scout? And a scout is going to be defined as whatever hero is closest to, whenever minion is closest to a hero. And in this example, they're equidistant from the heroes. So we go ahead and determine the scout based on the priority of the minion itself. So remember, we used priority to determine that the soldier was the hero of target. That's the target that the minions will go after. And therefore, we will make the lower right minion the scout, and its group will be the three that were adjacent to him. The scout will move up to 4, but remember, in this case it only moves 2 because it is engaged. The second minion of the minion group moves next to the soldier. It becomes engaged. The third minion of the group is a ranged minion, so it only moves to a position where it is at its maximum range from the soldier, and that maximum range happens to be 3. There are 2 remaining minions. There's the ranged minion and the melee minion. They're both considered scouts in and of themselves. The bottom minion will move towards the apprentice. Once it's engaged, it stops. It moves there because it cannot reach the soldier. That leaves the last ranged minion that can reach the soldier, and it will move here. The soldier will receive 4 attacks, and the apprentice will receive 1. Next up, we have the intellect monster type, and the grubbers are the intellect type from the base game. And we see on their monster card that their intellect classification is again underneath type and rank. Their priority is threat, proximity, and rage. So we will be using rage in this instance to determine the target, and that's because the soldier has the rage element associated with him. Remember that threat and proximity are the same for each of these 2 heroes as we had in the prior example. Grubbers move 3 movement points or 3 squares with their movement, and because they are intellect, they try to move their maximum movement while remaining engaged with their target. In other words, they will try to leave room for their fellow minions and allow them room to attack. So we'll first need to then take a look at the minions and say, well, which one of these is closest to the hero so that we can determine the scout. Again, same as the crawler example, they're all equal distant, so we'll use priority to determine who the scout is on these grubbers. The scout for the grubber will be the lower right hand minion that's next to the lair, and that is this particular minion that just flashed. Any minion adjacent to that scout then is considered to be part of its minion group. So those highlighted here in purple are part of the minion group that is associated with the scout. So the scout moves first. It moves up to 3 and remains engaged with the soldier. The second member of that minion group will move, and then the third will move after that, and they will end up surrounding the soldier with their 3 movement. The remaining 2 minions are considered scouts themselves. The masked minion at the bottom of the lair will move towards the apprentice because it cannot reach the soldier. Again, notice how it moves its maximum amount, 3, yet stays engaged with the apprentice. The last minion will move towards the soldier, even though it cannot reach it. It's in position for an attack the next round. The soldier will receive 3 attacks, and the apprentice will receive 1. Finally, we have a mixed example, and this particular tile has both crawlers and grubbers on it. And frankly, the reason I did this was just to give us an example where we've got both intellect and instinct monster types on the same tile. So we recall that instinct monsters go first whenever there's a mixed tile. Our crawlers have a movement of 4. Remember, that movement can be, that movement is they will move up to 4 until they are engaged with their target. And once they are engaged, they will cease all movement. The target for both crawlers and grubbers in this example is going to be the soldier. And again, from a priority standpoint, we look at proximity, threat, then guile. And if you recall the prior priorities, we said that I was going to select the soldier because proximity, threat were equal. Guile, there isn't one. Vitality was the same, and therefore we selected the soldier. So next up is we're going to determine which one of these crawlers happens to be the scout, and that's determined by whatever one is closest. And you saw the flash, that's the scout, and any minion adjacent to that scout is part of its minion group. The scout will move first. It moves up to 4, but it only moves 2 in this case because it's engaged with the soldier. The next minion of the group moves, and it will also move 2 because it's now engaged with the soldier. The final minion of the group is a ranged ranged minion, and it has a range of 3. So it will move until it's at its maximum range from the target, from the hero, the soldier. That leaves one remaining crawler, the ranged crawler at the top, and it happens to, you can consider it to be its own scout. It's a scout in and of itself, and that will also now move to the maximum range of 3 from the soldier. The soldier now takes 4 attacks from these crawlers, and you resolve those attacks and take damage and move on to the grubbers. The grubbers are the intellect minion. They happen to have a movement of 3. We look to see who the priority is. The heroes are a range of 3 away. The threats are the same. It does sort of look like that the soldier's further away, but he isn't. Therefore, the priority goes to rage, and the soldier is that hero with that particular aspect, and therefore the grubbers will attack the hero. The hero now is we have to determine who is the scout, and as before, the heroes are equal distance from the grubbers, so we go by priority. Again, that's going to be rage will be the winner here. So the grubber that's at the lower right of the monster grouping there will become the scout. And remember, any minions that are adjacent to this scout are a part of the minion grouping. So the scout will move and pull its minions with him, regardless of whether or not those minions in the group can actually reach the target of the scout. So you're seeing here the minions are moving. Those last 2 minions that were part of the group cannot reach the soldier, but they move along with the scout nonetheless. This leaves 2 grubbers, the masked grubber underneath the lair and the one at the upper right. Again, these can be considered scouts in and of themselves. The masked grubber will now move towards the apprentice. It cannot reach the soldier, so it will move towards the apprentice, and notice how it moves its maximum distance. And then the last grubber cannot reach either hero, but it will target the priority hero, which is the soldier. It will move into this position. At this point, the soldier will receive 1 attack from the grubber, as will the apprentice. I want to sincerely thank several people for participating and getting this video squared away. Endeavor, certainly I want to give you a shout out. Thanks for all of your help. I also want to recognize Kenny Sims from MegaCon Games. Thank you for your attention, especially during this week. And lastly, I just want to say that Random and I thoroughly enjoy doing this. If you've got any questions, please post them. If we made any mistakes, let us know. And I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you got something out of it. I look forward to bringing you the next version of Urban Myth. Take care.